Hey, Spacers. It's your GM here. Jim, Colin, and I haven't had a chance to play the following session yet, and despite my efforts to build a backlog of sessions so they can always go out on Sundays, we've already burned through it. So now this week's session, I will be giving you a prepisode and a glimpse in how I run Traveler. Hopefully we'll be back next week for more gaming, and we'll return to some more regular programming. Until then, sit tight and enjoy this episode. Get started. So you can see that most of my notes are done in a Google Doc for the time being. I've experimented with Obsidian, I've experimented with Notion, and I've been underwhelmed for their lack of support for effectively the maps for all your subsector maps and all that kind of stuff. So I don't use them. Instead, you can see I just use Google Docs. I kind of follow Sly Flourish's approach for lazy DMing. So what I always do is I start with my characters at the top, notable notes, the ship itself, any things I need to know. Then I just have a couple bits of GMing, kind of like my GM screen here for task chains, time frames, all that kind of stuff. Things I would probably add to this list would be the whole list of skills, because I still have to keep looking that up. But just in general, that's kind of how when I'm running the game, this is what I have open. And then I have the PDF of the rules open in another monitor. So let's talk about this next session. This will be the 5th session. We haven't been able to get a game in for a couple weeks, and I'm running out of backlogs. So this is where we're at. Because this is the fifth session, I label it session 5. I don't have a real life date because, again, I don't know when we're going to play next. Probably next week, whenever. It's getting to the holidays, so it's a little tricky. But I'd keep the in-game date for when things begin. And I write a little note to myself about what we're doing when we start. So I know we're still on Crawford. And I know that we're stocking and arming for their trip to the armor belt. So that's what we know going into here. A lot of people want to know what I do for prep and what all my sessions notes look like. This is what it looks like. I create titles with a lot of open questions and lets me play to find out. I might roll some stuff. You can see in some of my notes as I go through that I have kind of like pre-rolled some things just to see. So, sometimes I will roll in advance to help flavor a scene. But I will honor the results there, or I will roll in the session to see what happens. Just kind of how I feel in the moment and what's going on here. So let's look at the first example, the engineering lessons with Finn. Remember, Finn was brought on. Finn is Finn Fuji. He's the merchant 3rd officer. He was made using Classic Traveler because I have in my bookmarks a Classic Traveler character generator, which happens a lot faster than a Mongoose 2nd Edition character generator. So if I ever needed to, I could probably just pop the stuff in and convert them out to something better. But right now I feel like this does everything that I need to do. I have his notes. I have all his skills here, anything that I would kind of relatively need. What I don't have here is like what his electronics skill is. I'm just going to say it here. His electronic skill will be sensors, right? Because he's been on a ship, so he knows sensors. Right. So anyways, that's Finn. He was brought on to be the engineer and mechanic backup for Jim, for Hamilton Barca. The ship needs another person to help kind of keep the ship running. That's not just Hamilton. When he's asleep and stuff, if there's an engine, something breaks, you gotta have someone else on call. So they brought him on. We haven't seen anything about their relationship at all in this game, and like that professional relationship is what I want to be interested in. So I'm going to start the session with engineering lessons with Finn and ask Jim how Hamilton's keeps his engine bay. Does he follow sort of his familial Barca family standard of labeling things and putting stuff around? Did Ashraf interfere and insist on a Navy standard? Or does he do his own thing? And I kind of want to get that feeling, because this is like a person's workshop, when a person has a workshop, they like things a certain way. And so when a new person comes in, they're like, oh, why do you keep things a certain way? And maybe this guy's older than him, so he maybe wants things differently. Maybe he knows more, technically he might know more than Hamilton about a certain parts of a ship and stuff like that. So I kind of want to see if there's sort of like a power struggle there. Who is the teacher? Who is the student? That kind of stuff, right? So I kind of want to see what happens there and sort of what it looks like on the ship as far as that goes, right? The next part here is a possible threat. It's going to happen in this game, but it's called the software update. And at this point, the terminal station will reboot with a emergency patch. This was inspired by Windows, believe it or not. An emergency update, you just we'll shut down your computer or make it worse, and then the next thing you know, the user experience sucks, right? We've all been there. So I will call for a computer skill, or you'll be penalized as the new touchscreen user experience and stuff like that is all annoying and have stuff like that going forward, right? So this would be a fun way to use a computer skill. How do you solve this? If you don't have computers, my guess is that you have to pay money for a either labor, someone to do it for you, who knows, like your Geek Squad, or you will have to buy some kind of adapter kind of thing, and that just costs money, just something like that to be in the game. Some of this stuff is not necessarily just a tax. It's just like, for me, this is not saying, hey, I need to tax the players their money. This is saying this is just the slice of life stuff that you have to deal with when you're flying out in space. Your USB-A doesn't work, here, that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm getting inspired from these kind of problems. So like I have a problem about the personal relationships and the mentorship. Now I have a problem with sort of like where you go and where you end up, on station. And because this is such like a computer controlled station, I'm going with the software update. The next part is a little bit more about Finn. Remember, Finn's looking for their old captain. So I pre-rolled to see if they find anything about any leads here. I did roll to see if there are leads to be found, and I did yes. So if nothing else changes, nothing happens, then Finn doesn't find anything. I will roll in session to see whether or not this causes Finn to be, edging towards being hopeful that he'll still find the captain versus kind of giving into a little bit more of despair that he's, it's been a while and he hasn't had any progress. Right. So I will roll to see how he kind of goes on that way. Right. And then the next step here kind of dovetails into that is, remember we just sold all these drugs to that investigative reporter who gets embedded down on planet. I want to see how that went. I rolled a 7, so there's no result. I assume there needs to be like, if he would have rolled like, I'm kind of treating this as a reaction roll from like OSR. So like your 6 to 9 means either roll again or something, something else hasn't exactly happened or moved the needle. So because of that, we're still in that sweet spot. I'm just going to say that he hasn't had his meat yet and had a chance to go down on the planet. So if I roll this again in the future week, I'll roll this weekly, then I'll probably roll a 50-50 to push this needle one way or another. But also I made up offhand that, Luke Singh probably has information for Finn. And, maybe Finn hasn't put it together that Luke Singh's here and is doing this stuff because, again, probably Luke Singh is maybe running incognito because he's also, writing this other report. So if Finn puts this together that Luke's here, then he will, I don't know, maybe he might find out, or maybe the players help him. Like if the players help Finn, if this comes up in the session, then I'll probably end up saying they'll find out Luke Singh has this, but comes at the cost of, it might mess up his rendezvous, might not, something like that. Right. So that's kind of just the general idea. I don't really come into the games with a really, really strict, problem or like how things will get resolved. I much prefer to just create situations and just see where they go. And depending on the approach of the situations, I think about how much of an impact that will have on folks' things, right? So right now, I think if all things go well, Luke still has a good opportunity to meet with his sort of like farm people below who want these drugs on the down low. And because that option's still available, if nothing changes, they'll probably go off well. But if the PCs interfere and try to get a hold of him or something like that, then I will determine whether or not that's still the case. So we'll see. Also, I'll just come up with a couple of like just generic encounters in case this comes up. So one thing for the port encounters is that I make a note that the vibes of terminal, so that's the name of the port, again, the high port, they're all inspired by like a lot of like Navy folks. So this is not the other port, like this is not Port Samaritan. However, I was thinking about it, and a lot of terminals people coming here must be from the Navy, like Port Samaritan people, either inbound or outbound. So I assume there's just like a big Navy, like civilian Navy kind of stuff, right? Like, so if you ever lived in a town or by a port that has a Navy presence, you kind of know what I'm talking about here. So you'll see a lot of stuff like in the windows and things like that of the stores that have a lot of like holographs of their sons and their daughters in uniform, things that we're proud of, like, or even more so like the in memoriam. So like there might be like flags or something like that representing them, that kind of thing, right? And then also then I went ahead and just came up with a name, Seaman Dashel, as a possible Navy guy they could run into. Again, maybe none of this will happen, but as just in case, I needed a name and a group to get in a bar fight with, as just in case, because that's what Navy people do, right? They might engage in fisticuffs, but yeah. So what I mean by most of all this stuff is not just sort of the aesthetic touch. I think about this in terms of what kind of backgrounds will have the best bonuses here. And in my head, I kind of go off of sort of Blades in the Dark backgrounds, where you can have kind of like an academic background, you can have kind of a underclass background, you can kind of have a posh background, right? And sort of what level of society you're on and how you engage there. And because this port is so Navy focused, despite it not being Hargravian Navy, I would give like Ashraf probably like he's most familiar with sort of how Navy people go. And I'm going to ask Barca to, our dear Jim Hamilton, have a little bit more of a tough time because these people just they look down on him, frankly. Similarly, that other ship that's docked here, the Player. So I rolled this ship, and my notes for them was that this is actually a pirate, not just a patrol cruiser. So this must be an independent craft that's masquerading as sort of a ship, but has an ulterior motive. It's sort of what I have in my mind as a pirate that's docked here, and what a pirate could mean. It could also mean a smuggler or something like that, right? So in my head, the ship's captain is Kai Rosenthal, and the pirate, if I wanted to get an opportunity and things like this, I wanted to come up with some ideas. So one thought I had was if the players might reach out to Kai because the player might want to go to the armor belt, why would they want to do that? And what kind of opportunity would they have for there? So the first thing I did was whether or not Kai is in the Navy or had a Navy background. And 50-50 says no. The player and Kai did not join the Navy. They're on the outs, just like the player characters are. The next thing was, what does Kai want in the armor belt? And I said a newly found resource is bringing people to the belt. I use Starforge tables to help me with this stuff. Just to give me an idea. So this was like a new resource, sort of like a scenario problem that could come up. And so I came up with the idea that Kai has a treasure map. Specifically, they have a map to a derelict in space. A mysterious refuge is also, again, what ends up coming up when I did the Starforge tables. So I like this series of books called the Golden Tales of the Solar Clipper, Golden Age of the Solar Clipper series. And one of the things they have in that book is that there's these extra little worlds that are kind of end up getting off maps called the toeholds, which are like these little stations that are just kind of like in no-name sectors, parts of space that are barely governed, no one really cares about. So I'm going to kind of envelop that into this game a little bit and say that there are some space stations and some spaces on the map that are not labeled in the Imperium's, proper database that are actual spots for trade and things like that. Now they're going to be very small, little, tiny, barely bases, barely C-class ports at the best, right? But they will certainly be available. So I think they have access to one of those. So I think there's this sort of kind of like a shadow map. And this might also be like sort of where some pirates and things like to go and where they, and have that kind of access to information. So it makes sense to me that they would have something here. So maybe they need to make contact to one of these space stations. And so I rolled up here, space station is not recognized. So this must be one of those larger ports that I was talking about. Maybe this is one of these Class C starports. Because I also kept rolling, and the inspiration here was a mechanical starport. And so maybe this is like more like an automated kind of starport somewhere, which requires minimal interference. It's kind of just out there and got lost. And the other thought I came up with was, why would Kai work with the players? And I thought maybe there's pirates in the area. Maybe they're companions, someone affiliates, and they want to offer the PCs as bait to the pirates in order for them to pass, right? So they'll give them the ship, they'll let them do whatever they want to them. In return, they get to go on their merry way to this mechanical starport that they're hearing about to join up with them, right? So I don't know. I don't even know if this will ever come to pass, but if it does, that's what I kind of have here. Some of the additional notes is like, this is my general, this is where I keep everything else for Crawford. Like this is literally my notes for Crawford. So I have the names of this. I have what the planets run by. I roll up some kind of positive things, like for this one, the opportunities for smuggling, because again, it's such a heavily ruled world. If you can get through it, then it'd be good. But also, like, it's heavily ruled, and then there's this sort of like this threat and looming power struggle between the Navy and this world, right? So this is sort of a big thing for me, right? So for me, I also rolled up the name of sort of like who's the head of the Navy in Port Samaritan, and it's Admiral Abe. And this person desires time with the computer for Cohen to help design and upgrade the starport to upgrade it to a Class A, so they can start building Navy ships and expanding starship construction. But obviously the computer itself will deny this because they need to keep focusing on their experiment. So there's no real way to like get that without him kind of like seriously hacking or kind of taking over the station, and they're not there yet to do that. But that's sort of like a looming power struggle of Crawford itself. So I have threats here. I have desperate people. These are people who are trying to escape their like quote unquote utopian life and try to get off world, right? So that might be an opportunity. I haven't really given up that, but then erratic computation locked down the port. This is a little bit where I got the inspiration for the software upgrade going on. This is kind of like ties into that threat. And naval favors I haven't touched into yet either. So I kind of have that blank. That is possibly, I don't know, maybe even Seaman Dashel turns out to be like a point of contact for the Navy. Maybe they end up doing something to help with the whole computer takeover kind of stuff, right? Or maybe the computer finds out about whatever the Navy's doing and they'll ask the PCs for help. I don't know yet. We'll see. And then I also wrote down just some general NPCs here on the planet. So like Luke Singh is the drug dealing investigative reporter. And then we have Kai Rosenthal, the captain of players. And then elsewise, I just have some general notes for the game where like I need to flesh out some of the Armor Belt's cultures. In my head, I kind of want them to have a very different set of cultures than the pastoral bucolic worlds that we've been seeing so far. And like the sort of impoverished frontier. To me, I kind of think of the Armor Belt as kind of being like a smattering of Mars from the Expanse, like a very like kind of martially, generally oriented set of space. So they probably have much more militaristic lingo. They probably have a different sense of humor and speak differently, almost like maybe like the clans from BattleTech, but maybe less like rigid caste system kind of stuff, but definitely a sort of just a different set of values, just to show off that there's a different cultural hegemony here. So yeah, like this is generally what I have for prep for sessions. So if you want to see behind the screens what I'm doing, this is it. What else is here? We have all of my ships that I have for the whole sector. So starting from the top here, you can see we have scout types. So we have several different scouts. Then we go to free traders, sub merchants, subliners, yachts, lab ships, safari ships, system defense boats, close escorts, patrol corvettes, mercenary cruisers, and then a couple extra ones I've been coming up with. So anytime I'd be listening to some music or reading something and then go like, oh, that's a good name for a ship, I just go in here and throw it in and think of maybe what the best type of ship it should be. So you can see currently I have 179 ships total because the first row is the title. But yeah, so like I have some ships here, you know, whatever gender wants. We've seen the Veil of Isis. This one's like one of the more fleshed out ones, right? So there's Carlotta Marsh. They're unassuming, and like their vibe over here is literally Sicario operator, ship repossessors. Like this is what I have for my notes. So not all of them have stuff here. I'm still kind of going through and filling them all out, and then also giving them sort of like a general look. This takes obviously a lot of time, like a lot of time to do. And maybe you don't want to do this for your own game, but because I'm in a small sector, I figured I should label a lot of these ships. So when we run into ships again and again and again, there's sort of a pattern and there's sort of a predictable behavior rather than every ship being, you're not in a big city where you're never expected to, there's anonymity. Like when you see another free trader around, you've probably ran into them before, right? And I just ran, what I selected here was the White Roses of Gloucester, which we talked about earlier in an earlier episode. They're the humanitarian guys who are doing the drugs. But yeah, so like that's kind of the stuff I'm drawing from. So if I ever need a random ship, this is not in a perchance generator or anything yet, but it will be for me for my own usage. So this is one of the things that I use as a big resource for me for grabbing ships NPCs when I'm rolling for random ship encounters. But then also I'm going to drag you over here to the classic traveler character generator. So say I need a diplomat they're going to meet. I'm just going to generate one. He did not enlist. Re-enlist. Good. So he's not dead. I was just checking to see if they died, and he didn't die. So their final stats is their strength is 2. They have a C social status, so they're pretty high up. With computer liaison and streetwise, cool. Looks like they were commissioned and then chose not to re-enlist. So they're just basically like a rich baron who, so basically this is all you need, right? But he clearly has a liaison and streetwise. So this guy is definitely a gregarious person. He probably does a little bit, he's not necessarily in the upper echelons of society. This guy clearly like is a boots on the ground kind of organizer type and is more accustomed to dealing with the more nitty gritty of the world rather than the hoity toity. Right. So this is literally what I use for coming up with characters as well when I need them. And hopefully this helps you see what I'm doing to prep. It's nothing special. If I was running a 4-session game, I would probably go into a little more detail, run into and have to prep even more. But because my games are only 2 hours, there's so much just direction and thrust from the last sessions that I can just keep asking these kind of questions and know where to go. I'll just follow these prompts when I need to. So whenever there's like a lull, whenever the players aren't deciding on what to do something, I can just introduce one of these things. I can throw it. I can throw something back to them. But it's really tough when you're starting Traveler because there's just kind of this, it's kind of starting a sandbox. Like there's so much empty space and unknowns that it's hard to make a general plan and stick with it and do things. So I don't try to derail what the characters are wanting to do, but I do want to help start showing like, hey, when you want to do things, the world also wants you to do things as well, and portray the world kind of honestly. So, hopefully you see. I want to show you an example of other things we've done here before, right? So this was last session. So this is the last live session that's been recorded, or published. This is the last published session. So I have my notes here. So we're still at skip. I make my notes that we patch things up with the administrator. Then I have a note here that says Mr. Moses wanted to treat with them. I had some stuff about Hamilton's drugs. I did pre-roll for what he did, but if you watch the session, then you know that I actually just asked him to re-roll, or I asked him to roll. He didn't know that I had this stuff set up already. Here when I said he wound up on the other part of the moon at a sculpture of Ganesh, and woke up in his EV suit, and he has to get out. But it didn't get to be that bad because he got local legend status instead. So rather than this kind of these blank hide passage tickets, so that was fun. So like we just did it that way. So I ended up just not even using these parts of notes. I did ask the lads what they want to do for fun, which is how we got. He loves to read murder mysteries and stuff like that, and Ashraf loves to play chess and things. And then I had a passenger set up in case they wanted to go to Harper. So I had some notes for Harper down below, and I had a passenger, and this person was going to want to plant explosives at the starport as a terrorist, which is what the book kind of ended up getting. This person's like a death cultist kind of person, and so I assume maybe they're from Harper, and they think that the destruction of the starport will end up kind of saving the people of Harper, so they get a new one faster. Something like kind of twisted that kind of way, like a accelerationist things need to get, what do you call it? Something the eschaton. You know what I'm talking about? You have to speed up the end of the world so things are better. Like maybe that kind of type. And then, I have some general threats for Harper, but they didn't. I assumed they weren't going to go there, and then they might have pivoted to Crawford. So I did have Crawford stuff set up earlier. And this person is, this reminds me, I need to give this to the group next session. So good thing I actually came down here. This is a artist contact. So if you remember, Hamilton became a local legend among the artists. So I needed a artist that they should be able to have a name. One of the important things I found in GMing is to give people names. Just give them a name, give them a point of contact, make things real. So here's Sir Omar Quinn of Hargrave. I also rolled randomly to see what world they were from. Turns out they're from Hargrave, just like the rest of the group. But they're also like a noble, right? So they're one of these rich baron kids. So this is like an artist guy who's clearly like rich, living off of, he's 26. He's living off of his, familial, his familial wealth, while also like eschewing all responsibilities and talking about how, all power is corrupt and that anarchy is the way kind of stuff, right? Like he's like one of those guys. So that works. And I normally don't share their skills, but I did roll up their skills again. This guy is from the classic traveler generation, so this person has a little bit of leader, liaison, medical sword. Cool. So anyways, yeah, maybe this leadership is why he's a leader. Who knows? But I'll just give that Omar Quinn as the name contact. So in case they come back to skip for some reason or need to know somebody, there's a name besides just Moses. Okay. Well, thanks for hanging out with me while I went through my traveler notes.